Hey everyone, this channel's not dead, I've just been busy, sorry. But let's just get right back into it. Do you have a Transformers character that you like for incredibly shallow reasons? What's that? Several? Yeah, me too. One of mine is the Stunticon Dragstrip. Not for anything he says or does, but just because he turns into a Tyrrell P34, a six-wheeled Formula 1 car that the Tyrrell team used for a few years in the 70s. And the P34 just happens to be my favourite Formula 1 car, for equally shallow reasons. I just think it looks cool. And because of that, I have scoured far and wide to procure every single official Dragstrip toy that turns into a Tyrrell P34, and I am going to review them all. But before you get too excited, it turns out they only ever actually made two of them. Yeah, he's not really a character they make a unique mould for very often. The only two Dragstrip toys to use the P34 for their alt mode are the original 1986 one and the 2022 Legacy version. So let's take a look at both of those, starting in their P34 alt mode because that's the theme around which this whole video is tenuously held together. Now, my G1 Dragstrip is missing his accessories and stickers, but I got him for a quid from a second-hand shop, so don't start. Plus, I do feel that, on some level, the lack of stickers does make him look a lot cleaner, although that's mostly just an excuse I've made up to avoid having to buy new stickers for him. Still, he is a very nice little rendition of the six-wheeled Tyrrell, just in bright yellow. He did come with a rub sign so you can see what side he's on. This one has grown a little pale over the decades, but he is still a Decepticon. Another way you can see his age is how his combiner post / head will flop down when you pick him up, but we shouldn't make fun of him for that. Also, I didn't realise this until I got my hands on one, but it's kinda weird how the second set of smaller wheels, despite being pinned, do not, in fact, touch the ground. Not entirely sure why. Legacy Dragstrip, on the other end, is a much larger and more detailed affair, although possibly somehow slightly less accurate to the real car than the old 86 one, with the driver's seat looking suspiciously like the back of Dragstrip's head. On account of that being exactly what it is. To be honest, I do have a lot of tiny quibbles with this thing. The whole cockpit area is very messy, the rear wing never feels like it sits flat enough, and the pegs for the wheels stand out a lot, especially since the front ones are bright yellow. I am not surprised that third-party upgrade kits with covers for those went up for sale nearly instantly once this thing was out. Still, I do like it, and I think the overall effect does work quite well. Plus, all six wheels do actually touch the ground this time, which is apparently something I need to be grateful for. He can store his weapons either side of the cockpit, and I think this might be one of my favourite alt-mode weapon storages. Normally, Transformers vehicle weapon storage just looks like a car with a giant unfitting handgun stuck to it, but this one gives me big PlayStation 1 vehicle combat game energy, like they're an unlockable car in a Twisted Metal game, or, since it's a car from 1976, then probably Vigilante 8 Second Offense. So we've got two decent enough yellow Formula 1 cars, but what, and hear me out here, if they turned into robots? G1 Dragstrip's robot mode is pretty standard for a combiner limb of the time. That is to say that his articulation is basically limited to waggling his arms up and down, but I have always liked his little blue face and how it contrasts with his purple, his purple helmet. He's not hugely well balanced, with the majority of diecast in his torso being towards the rear, meaning he falls over very easily. But he does feel relatively well realised for a bot, considering that he also needs to be an arm or possibly a leg. I do enjoy messing with him even if I don't have the rest of his team. I think I just find his big clown shoes kind of endearing. Legacy Dragstrip, being a modern deluxe, is the exact opposite of the old one in terms of posing, having most of the articulation you could want from a bot at this price point. Although, before we go any further, I should mention that I did repaint his silver face to match the blue of the original toy, since I just prefer it. Something even the explicit toy redeco of this mould didn't do for some reason. If you were looking to do something similar yourself, then I just used a couple of coats of Citadel Baharoth blue paint, which seemed to be a pretty good match for the paint on the face of the G1 toy. Just keep applying thin coats of it until you've got a nice coverage, and then seal it in with some varnish and you're golden. Or blue, as the case may be. The rest of the bot is pretty much a sea of yellow with a tiny island of gold in the centre, especially when viewed from dead on, but that is accurate to the cartoon design, which is where this is mostly pulling from. Still, I can't help but feel that some of these details on the legs would look better with a bit of paint on there. His guns can be wielded either as a pair or combined together in a way that doesn't necessarily look good, but is probably an homage to the double gun you could ram up the arse of the G1 toy's alt mode, if you know, possess such things. The Legacy one does, however, also possess a hole for you to poke things into, which breaks him apart into two halves. This is, strictly speaking, just for his combined mode, but, you know, you can do some other stuff with it, if you like. Oh, and due to how his legs compress, he does have a tiny bastard mode, which always improves a toy in my opinion. So yeah, the P34 Dragstrips, I like them a lot. Both are flawed, but both are, importantly, Tyrrell P34s, and thus are good. These are the rules of this house, and we make no apologies for being correct. Now, of course, if you venture into the third-party scene, there are much fancier P34 drag strips, like this G2 Deco one from X-Transbots, but that's somewhat outside the purview of this particular video. Still, putting that fancy masterpiece grade stuff aside, it is quite fun to put the two Hasbro ones together just to see what 36 years of toy engineering advancement looks like. We have come a long way. And yes, these do combine with other bots, but I wanted to showcase them on their own because they don't get to step out of that shadow very often. Most Combiner team members, who aren't Swindle, just kinda become part of the crowd, so I think it's nice to give them their own time to shine. Also, I don't own the other bots these combine with anyway, because those don't turn into Tyrrell P34s, so why would I bother?